Sir, why do you believe Indian dentists should attend international conferences? What are the biggest benefits in terms of clinical networking and exposure?
Uh, Dentistry has changed the way we practice and we think about it. So, if you were to divide dentistry into, let us say, the era post, say, 95 to 2000, and the era before that, there is a lot of changes which have occurred in view of certain new understandings about dentistry. A tremendous development has occurred as far as materials are concerned, which was not accessible maybe in the past century. Most of these things have unraveled or have been discovered abroad. And thanks to globalization, we are now able to provide these advances in dentistry for the best benefit of our patients. International conferences could be possibly classified into two. One are those which are sort of industry based conferences, uh, something like Expo which we have in India. So the most famous obviously is IDS Cologne, where we get a lot of exposure as to what dentistry is right now and what is dentistry going to be in the future, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. So that is one type of conference. I have not really attended those kind of conferences. The other kind of conference is obviously science-based conference. Like we conduct many in India, IDA has many CDE activities, specialty bodies have different CDE activities, and similarly, world over, we have many specialty conferences, general conferences. So I have been fortunate enough to be a part of many of these conferences. Most of them obviously related to the field of pediatric dentistry, but a few general conferences like FDI.
Sir,
When we think of these conferences, what helps us the most is what is the world doing, what is the world thinking, and whether we are in tandem, we are on track, we are with the world, or we are possibly ahead of the world. And believe me, friends, in certain parts, we are ahead of the world. So that's an important facet, that's an important aspect which Indian dentists can learn, can experience when they go for such conferences.
can you share some personal takeaway from international conferences you have attended? Any life-changing or practice-changing moments?
Uh, this answer will take a bit long because I have to sort of summarize most of the conferences. To be very honest, the first international conference which I attended was in fact one organized by IDA Dombivli when Dr. Vanita Shilsagar was the president, and we had an international trip actually to Singapore and Thailand. And the conference was a very short part of that. It was just half a day conference. And all of us went together. There were about 40 to 50 dental surgeons, and we had a good time there. But to be very honest, I started seriously attending international conference from around 2013-14. The reason obviously was in relation to college. I had gathered more experience. I was more in an administrative and a more teaching profession. I also happened to become the KOL of a few companies. And once these changes started occurring in my personal life, it was necessary for me to remain abreast with what is going on internationally. I do understand the plight of most Indian dentists when it comes to attending international events because there's a huge cost factor involved, there's a huge amount of planning involved. And the primary area of, or my interest in attending these events, especially related to pediatric dentistry, was try to learn some of the things which are experienced abroad, which are taught abroad, and try to Indianize them and get that information, get those products to use for Indian dentists. So that was my prime idea of starting to attend conferences. The first one, obviously, as I said, most of them are related to pediatrics. But again, India took the start because one of the first conferences, the international conferences which I attended, was FDI, which occurred in Delhi. Again, that was organized by IDA head office. And because of my contributions to IDA and because of my positions and maybe my knowledge base, I also happened to be one of the keynote speakers at FDI. And that was a completely different experience because it is very easy to bat on your home pitch, on your home ground. Anybody can score a century on your home ground. But when you are addressing a hall which is filled with 200 odd people, many of them come from abroad, the chairpersons are very, very renowned, then that gives you some jitters. But that experience was worthwhile and it sort of acted as a booster that yes, even a person like me from a small place like Dombivli can make a difference, can make a presentation in front of us. And that really started off the journey. Then there were many of the conferences, most of them were actually in Europe, a few of them in Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, etc. And essentially, what I gathered from that is that the world is moving in dentistry at a very fast pace. The things, I'm not very senior by the way, though I look a bit senior, but I started practicing pediatric dentistry from 2004. And if I were to divide my own practice, 2004 to 2014, I was more of a traditional sort of a pediatric dentist, concentrating essentially on restorative dentistry with a little bit of prevention. Post 2014 to what is now, the way I practice things, I would say has changed completely, but there have been quite a few new additions into my practice. I practice a lot of prevention. I practice a lot of minimally invasive techniques, and this understanding has come to me by attending international events, by interacting with the best of the people in the business, trying to put across our ideas to them, and trying to imbibe what they have to say as far as pediatric and preventive dentistry is concerned. So yes, obviously, for any Indian dentist who wishes to travel abroad, and the question which comes is, what do I have to gain out of it? The one solid answer which I can give you is, it will change the way you think about your practice. It will change the way you practice or do a few procedures or you approach patients. So that is the biggest point which I feel.
Sir, you talked about FDI by IDA and even conference organized by IDA Dombivli. How do international events differ from Indian conferences in terms of content, culture, and organization?
There is a big difference. As I said, I have attended most of the events which are pediatric dentistry based and one or two events which are general dentistry based. But if I were to highlight, let us say, 4 to 5 key differences. First, most of the international conferences are theme based. For example, say there is a conference which is an implant based conference, but that conference is purely talking of, say, maxillary sinus lift procedures. So the conference is dedicated to a particular part of that. That does not mean there are not general dental conferences. Yes, there are. Even in pediatric and preventive dentistry, there is a 4-day conference which addresses different arenas, different aspects of pediatric dentistry. But the focus is always on very, very select or very, very focused discussions. For example, there is one session which will talk of only early childhood caries and its management. There is another session which talks only of, say, endodontic interventions. There is a third session which talks of traumatic injuries. So it is very well planned in that manner, that it's a session-based plan. So that is the first, I would say, difference. Second difference is the scale of organization. Most of the international conferences, obviously they are at an international level, so the audio visuals are state of the art. Nowadays, even at local events, we have seen this, that people normally use LED walls. The what do you say? वो ज़माना चला गया when we used to use that projector screen. That's a good system. I'm not saying no, but LED is something that is completely different. So the state of the art audio visual aids. But the most important point which I feel, as I said, I am essentially a science-based or a scientific person, is the time durations. When it says that it starts at 9, it starts at 9. I recollect a conference at Glasgow. It was in the month of May, I suppose, and it was raining in Glasgow, which normally it rains. And the outside temperature was 6 degrees at 9 o'clock in the morning. And the main auditorium, which had a capacity of 200 people, I thought that because it's raining, not many people will come. But to my surprise, when I reached the venue at 8:50, I did not get a place to sit. I had to stand. Joe Franken, one of the most renowned speakers in pediatric dentistry, was the first person. And there was a chairperson called James Call, who is greater than Joe Franken. But there was no paraphernalia. Har ture, slipper, shawl, nothing of that. The chairperson just went on stage, sharp at 8:59, welcomed everyone, gave a brief sort of orientation towards the session. In 2 or 3 lines, he just introduced the speaker, Joe Franken, and Joe Franken was on sharp at 9 o'clock. He had a very interesting topic, and most of the people who had gathered there were there to listen to that topic. And his time allotted was 9:45. 9 o'clock to 9:45, 45 minutes. He was in the midst of his discussion and he realized that it's 9:45. He just shut down his laptop and said, "That's all, folks, from me now. We'll meet some other time." And he was out. Okay. No paraphernalia, no certificates, no 100 photographs, nothing of that sort. So that was one thing which completely changed the way I used to look at it. So that is one very peculiar thing about international events, is that normally they start on time and they end on time. That applies whether it's a keynote speaker, whether it's a guest speaker, whether it's a 10-minute paper or poster presentation. They are very crucial about times. And I'm sorry to say that at a few occasions I have experienced our Indian people going abroad having no sense of time, and they have been possibly ridiculed as well as have brought shame to the country, very stalwarts in my professions. That's the sad part of it, but generally that's one thing. As far as the banquet is concerned, if you think our banquets are all roly-poly, then you should go and attend their banquets. Believe me, friends, they have more fun than we have. And at the end of the banquet, half of them are rolling on the ground. So it's nothing different from us. But the important point is next day morning they're again back on time. So they have more fun, they enjoy more. Another key difference is nothing comes for free. It's a heavily charged events. Most of the events are. But most of the events, when we consider the registration fees, they are anywhere between 20 to 50,000 rupees. That's only the registration fee. And it includes possibly refreshments, not even a snack. It's just tea, coffee is available around the corner 24 the entire event time. You get some refreshments which can be called as lunch depending on which country it is. I'm a pure vegetarian, so there are some restrictions on what I eat. And in the evening we have some tea and cookies. That's all. There's nothing else. The banquet is normally paid separately for, anywhere between say 80 to 200 US dollars. So nothing comes for free. That is another very important difference between what we have here. And generally the focus is very well maintained. I have been to Europe most of the time, so Europe is sort of, it's a pot boiler, so people from different countries, different continents boil down to Europe, so that gives a very good interaction, good discussion.
What can our association like IDEA adopt from such international conferences are being conducted, because we have many protocols and everything. So what can we do, or where can we improve essentially without hurting the sentiments of the people?
Yes, as far as protocols are concerned, yes, there are some protocols. But please remember, my dear friends, protocols are created by us and laid down by us. That also means that if we need to modify the protocol, it is we who have to modify it. There is no third party who insists that this is the protocol. Protocols have changed over the years. The protocol which was there, say 15 years or 20 years back, that's no longer the protocol today. And I'm pretty sure that it will not be the protocol after another 5 to 10 years. So it is we who have to set the protocol. Having said so, because the IDA is a registered organization and there are certain protocols as far as the constitutional protocols are concerned which we need to follow. But what we need to change is possibly a few of these things. If a scientific program or a CDE event is being organized by any association, IDA is one of them, I think so science should be the focus. An association normally looks after the welfare of its members. And scientific programs are one of the ways of doing that. But if the focus of the program is science, then I think so science should be given the most importance. and the remaining things should become secondary. So that is one thing which I think can be done. And I'm happy to say that those winds of change have already started blowing in our country. It's not that we are following a completely different culture from what is there. Time is something which I always have been a bit adamant and a bit, say, inflexible about, including today's recording, which I'm happy to say, despite the rains, we started pretty much on time. So that is something which is very, very crucial. Whatever conferences you people may have attended, you must have seen that the speaker is normally always on time. Whoever the speaker is, whether he is a big shot or he is a newcomer. But definitely, if he has been invited to share his knowledge, then his time is also equally important. So maybe the organizers or maybe the invitees, that is the audience, they need to respect the time of the speaker. Frankly, if you ask me, as I said, I am a bit adamant and very crude on these ideas. If we don't respect the time of others, then we can't expect others to respect our time. So that's my simple take on it. And these are the few things which may change. The food, India is known for its cuisine, so I don't think so we should cut down on that. But sometimes it makes sense to have a working type of a lunch or a dinner rather than having a very elaborate menu, because obviously the moment our satiety is satisfied, our stomachs are full, at least that's in my case, the supply to my brain ceases. So it makes me very, very sleepy and less attentive. So then post-lunch sessions are normally a bit of a challenge. So yeah, but a good amount of working lunch should keep me satisfied and at the same time keep me awake. So these are a few subtle changes which I think so we can incorporate.
What would you advise young dentists who hesitates to attend these conferences, even Indian conferences, due to cost, either or they are reluctant to attend these conferences nowadays, or maybe they have language barriers? What would you say advise them?
It is never too late to make a start. I do understand that whenever we talk of international conferences, nowadays even the local conferences, if you see the airfares, if you see the hotel costs involved, obviously we are going to spend some additional amount there. So it's a, I won't say a financial burden, but yes, it's a financial challenge if we have to attend the conference. Let's think positively. Most of the conferences are announced at least 3 months to 1 year in advance on different social media, on the internet, on the websites, through word of mouth. My practical suggestion to any dentist, whether he's a newcomer or an old established practitioner, at least once in 3 to 5 years, attend one. So you can plan well in advance. For example, if you ask me, it's 2025. I know that the next pediatric dentistry conference is in South Africa, which I'm not able to attend. But the one after that is in Japan, that's occurring in 2027 June. So I've already started planning for that. As far as finance is concerned, I have started planning for that. They have already put up the theme of the conference, so I know what I am expected to present there. So I have started planning for that. I normally like to travel, so planning is more enjoyable to me rather than the actual execution. So I have already started booking, okay, if I have to go by this flight, I have to go by this flight, and what all things I can see along. Maybe if the conference is in this part of Osaka, where should I stay? So that's a very, very thoroughly enjoyable process. And I know that 2 years down the line, financially, I have this much of a commitment. The dates of the conference are announced, so I know that possibly 3 to 4 days prior and 3 to 4 days later. So 10 days I'm not going to be in India in my practice, in my college. So if we plan things in advance and make a commitment to it, I think so it is very much possible. Yes, it is expensive, but I still feel it is worth the experience. So my request is at least once in 3 years or maybe once in 5 years, at least attend one international event. I am pretty positive. While the stamp paper or लिहून देतो, you will never forget the experience which you had.
So this all things are about dentistry, but how does attending the international conferences help us in personal growth or personal development?
Please remember, friends, humans are social animals. Dentistry is a part of our life. That does not mean dentistry only is our life. There are many other things to be explored. As dentists, we are very, very fortunate. Whether we accept it or not, we belong to the top 2% of this community worldwide. And the world is a beautiful place. Why only international? Even in India, there are so many things to explore, to experience, to see, that it's an enriching experience in itself. In Marathi, आपली एक जुनी म्हण आहे की हा 12 गावचं पाणी प्यायला आहे. If you want to tell others that he's a very, very experienced person, he's a very, very wise person with a lot of wisdom, बऱ्याच वेळा आपण ही म्हण वापरतो की हा 12 गावचं पाणी प्यायला. म्हणजे काय? What does it mean? That he has interacted with people across different communities. Many of us are fond of food. You will agree with me. मुंबईचं फूड, पुण्याचं फूड, कोल्हापूरचं फूड आणि नागपूरचं फूड. मध्ये मराठवाडा, औरंगाबाद येतं, वरच्या बाजूला जळगाव. महाराष्ट्रामध्येच, विदिन महाराष्ट्र, there are so many different type of cuisines. Imagine now you go to Gujarat, you go to Madhya Pradesh, you go to Turkey, you go to Europe, you go to Australia, you go to Russia. It's completely different. So those who enjoy food, cuisine is completely different. Something which we are proud of ourselves, that is our culture. Just as we are proud of our Indian culture, each country in the world has its own culture for us to experience. That starts right from their schedules, किती वाजता उठतात, किती वाजता झोपतात, their climates, their attire, their clothes, their food, their language, their way of interactions. I'll give you a simple example. When I went to England for the first time, the chairman of the conference was someone who we used to look up to because we used to read his textbooks. And one very senior Indian origin dentist, I told him, please introduce me to him, sir. So he said, the first thing which you have to remember here in UK is that sir, ही पदवी ना राणीने दिलेली. तो उद्या तुम्ही कोणालाही सर नाही म्हणू शकत, तुम्ही राणीचा अपमान करा. तू त्याला नावाने हाक. Today, when I'm teaching in college, the second year PG calls the third year PG sir. Don't you think that's a barrier? If we address each other by names, and that's their culture. In fact, if I had called him sir, he would have been insulted. Then I very meekly told him that he's twice my age, so I can't call him by his name. So I will call him Dr. Richard, which is fair. It's a different type of a culture. So we get to experience different cultures. We tend to experience different climates. Some people may be shy, they are not bold enough. But boldness can only come when we get more experience. Language sometimes is a major barrier. I remember I had recently gone to Portugal via Turkey. Airport's not a problem, everything is in English. But at the local place, speaking their language is not possible. They don't understand English. But how we negotiate that challenge, how we overcome that issue, is something which makes us wise. And that is possibly what I think is called as wisdom. To use your brains, to use your ability when you are in a challenging situation. And this comes with a lot of experience. So I think so, yes, it's worth an experience. Though there are issues, there are challenges, but what's the fun of life if there is no challenge?
Top 3 tips for making most out of attending the conferences internationally.
Decide upon why you are attending that conference. As I said, I am a person of science. So I attend a conference for science. So if a conference is for 3 days or 4 days, say starting at 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock, the best place to find me in any part of the world at that time is in the conference hall. So our aim of attending the conference should be clear. If a particular person's aim of attending the conference is not to attend the conference and explore that country, so be it. I have nothing against that. But then that should be focused. If we are spending time, energy and money, then there's no point in diluting our own objective. So that is the first thing. Go with a specified objective and accomplish that objective. Second, try to take your family along. Dentists are in a very, very stressful job. And it is necessary for dentists and other human beings to also take a break. Conferences, whether international or national, are a good opportunity for us to take a break from our schedule, to spend some quality time with family. Now I know some of you will raise your eyebrows because इथे एका माणसाचा परवडत नाही तर फॅमिलीला कुठे घेऊन प्लॅन केलं तर शक्य आहे. आपण पिगी बँक कन्सेप्ट जसा वापरतो ना, दररोज थोडे थोडे पैसे काढून ठेवायचे, आधीपासून प्लॅन करायचा. आज मला युरोपला जायचं असेल एकट्याला तर 2 लाख खर्च आहे, फॅमिली सकट 6 लाख खर्च आहे, मला 4 वर्षांनी जायचं आहे, त्यामुळे ते 10 लाख रुपये मला लागणार आहेत. आणि बोटीस दररोज पिगी बँक मध्ये टाकले, it will give us a different experience of our own family, because they will also behave differently than they are abroad. जे स्वरूप आपण कधी त्यांचं बघितलेलं असतं, त्यांच्यामध्ये बोल्डनेस आहे, ते स्वतः तिथे वेगवेगळ्या पार्ट्स मध्ये मेट्रोनी पब्लिक ट्रान्सपोर्टनी प्रवास करू शकतात, जेव्हा आपण 4 दिवस तिथे कॉन्फरन्स मध्ये बसतो. सो तो एक वेगळा अनुभव. सो दॅट इज द सेकंड थिंग आय फील, दॅट with your family or with your friends, so that you are not alone. And third thing which I would like to say is, please don't consider yourself inferior. आपण बऱ्याच वेळा ना, तो आपला इंडियन्सचा प्रॉब्लेम आहे की आपण अजूनही गोऱ्या कातडीचे भक्त आहोत. आणि टू बी व्हेरी ऑनेस्ट, आपण जेव्हा बाहेर जातो, आपण किती गोरेपान असलो तरी आपल्याला काय असतं, तो बॅरियर आहे काही ठिकाणी, नाही असं. पण वी आर नोवेअर इन्फिरियर टू. इनफॅक्ट ॲट सर्टन प्लेसेस आय विल बी हॅपी टू शेअर दॅट वी आर मच अहेड ऑफ देम. आपल्याकडे अमॅलगम करणं बऱ्याच प्रॅक्टिसेस मध्ये आता बंद होऊन पण काही वर्ष. इनफॅक्ट मला तर लक्षातच नाही की मी लास्ट अमॅलगम कधी केले. काही देशांमध्ये, प्रगत देशांमध्ये अजूनही अमॅलगम करतात. त्यांच्याकडचं एंडोचं काम बघितलं आणि आपल्याकडचं एंडोचं, नॉर्मल डेंटिस्टचं आपल्याकडचं जे एंडोडॉन्टिक रिलेटेड वर्क इज मच सुपिरियर टू देम. द ओनली थिंग विच पॉसिबली सेट्स अस डाऊन और समटाइम्स वी फील इन्फिरियर इज ते एकदम पॉलिश इंग्लिश मध्ये बोलतात, दिसायला एकदम गोरेपान असतात, सूट बुक मध्ये येतात आणि असं दाखवतात की आम्ही कुठल्या लेवलला खूप जास्ती प्रगत विचार करतो. तसं नाही. सो डोंट हॅव एनी इन्फिरियरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स वेन यू आर गोइंग अब्रॉड. इनफॅक्ट गो विथ अ पॉझिटिव्ह ॲटिट्यूड. आय एम नॉट सेइंग यू शुड बी ओव्हर कॉन्फिडंट, बट बी कॉन्फिडंट ऑफ युअर वर्क. Be confident of what you are presenting. Whatever are the queries, whatever the questions, whatever the challenges, take it in your stride, and I am pretty sure that all of you will enjoy that experience. It's a wholesome, enriching experience, and I'm also confident that it will change the way you approach different issues in your life in your company.
Thank you so much, sir. I think this insight is going to be very useful for us all. And many of us will start attending international conferences soon with your tips. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, IDA Dombivli, and I really have to give credit to Dr. Sumit and the entire team of IDA Dombivli, headed by our president, Dr. Aditi, for coming up with these bright ideas of networking with people. In fact, I think the next time we should reverse this camera and focus the camera on Sumit and have his interview as to how these ideas come into his brain. So anyways, thank you so much. That was a great experience.